What if some of the plants humans have used for thousands of years are quietly influencing the way the brain works, without most people ever realizing it? Long before neuroscience laboratories and modern psychology existed, ancient cultures had already discovered something remarkable. Certain plants could sharpen attention, some could calm the mind, others could change mood, increase mental energy, or help people sleep. Warriors, monks, scholars, and healers all relied on specific plants that interacted with the human nervous system in subtle but powerful ways. The surprising part is that many of these plants are not rare discoveries hidden deep in remote jungles. Some are brewed into drinks people consume every day. Some grow in gardens. And others have influenced human behavior and culture for centuries. Today, we're exploring 20 plants that secretly affect the human brain. Stay with me, because plant number 7 contains compounds traditionally used to calm the nervous system. Plant number 12 became famous across entire civilizations for its effects on the mind, and plant number 18 produces substances that eventually changed the history of medicine itself. Once you understand how these plants interact with the brain, the natural world around you may start to look very different. Let's begin with the first one. Number 1. Coffee plant, the ancient mind awakener. Today, millions of people start their day with coffee. But long before coffee became a global beverage, people had already noticed that the plant had a remarkable effect on the mind. Historical accounts trace coffee's discovery to the highlands of East Africa, where people observed that consuming the plant's beans could increase alertness and reduce fatigue. Over time, coffee spread through the Middle East, where scholars and travelers began drinking it during long nights of study and discussion. What makes the coffee plant so interesting is a compound called caffeine, a naturally occurring substance that interacts with receptors in the brain involved in wakefulness and attention. Instead of directly stimulating the brain, caffeine blocks signals that normally tell the body it is tired. This allows the mind to remain alert for longer periods of time. For centuries, people have used coffee not just as a drink, but as a tool for concentration, conversation, and mental energy. Even today, the coffee plant remains one of the most widely used natural substances that influences human brain activity. And yet, coffee is only the beginning, because the next plant on this list has influenced the human mind for thousands of years in a completely different way. Number 2, tea plant, calm focus in a cup. If coffee represents mental stimulation, the tea plant represents something more balanced. For thousands of years, tea made from the leaves of Camellia sinensis has been consumed across Asia and later around the world. Ancient texts from China describe tea as a drink that helped clear the mind and support thoughtful focus. Monks and scholars often drank tea during meditation or long periods of reading and writing. Unlike coffee, tea contains a combination of compounds that interact with the brain in a more subtle way. Alongside caffeine, tea contains a natural amino acid called L-theanine. Researchers studying this compound have found that it is associated with relaxed alertness, a state where the mind remains attentive while the body feels calm. This unique balance may explain why tea became such an important part of intellectual and cultural traditions across entire civilizations. But the next plant on this list does not come in a cup. Instead, it comes from the seeds of a tropical tree that ancient cultures once considered a gift from nature itself. Number 3. Cacao, the plant linked to mood. Long before chocolate became a modern dessert, cacao held a very different place in ancient societies. Civilizations in Central and South America valued cacao so highly that it was sometimes used as currency. But cacao was not prized simply for its flavor. People noticed that consuming drinks made from cacao beans could influence mood and mental energy. The plant contains several naturally occurring compounds that interact with the brain, including substances related to the body's neurotransmitters. These compounds are believed to contribute to feelings of pleasure and mental stimulation. Because of these effects, cacao beverages were often consumed during important rituals, gatherings, and social events. In many cultures, cacao was seen as a plant that connected people, elevated mood, and energized the mind. But the next plant on this list was used for a very different purpose. Instead of stimulating the mind, it became known for helping the brain and body recover from stress. Number 4. Ginseng, the root of mental endurance. For thousands of years, the root known as ginseng has been one of the most respected plants in traditional herbal systems. Ancient herbal texts from East Asia describe ginseng as a plant associated with vitality, endurance, and mental resilience. Travelers and scholars often used it during long journeys or periods of physical and mental strain. Modern research has studied compounds within ginseng called ginsenosides. These compounds are believed to interact with the body's stress response systems and may influence aspects of mental performance and fatigue. Historically, people valued ginseng not as a sudden stimulant, but as a plant associated with long-term balance and endurance. But while ginseng was used to support energy and focus, the next plant on this list became famous for its connection to memory itself. Number 5. Ginkgo biloba, the ancient memory tree. Few plants on Earth have a history as long as the ginkgo tree. Often called a living fossil, the ginkgo species has existed for millions of years and has been cultivated by humans for centuries. Traditional herbal practices used extracts from the leaves of this tree in preparations associated with cognitive function. Modern researchers have studied ginkgo because of its potential influence on blood circulation, including circulation to the brain. Improved circulation may play a role in supporting certain aspects of memory and mental clarity. Because of this long history of interest, ginkgo remains one of the most widely discussed plants in relation to cognitive health. But as we continue through this list, you'll see that plants can influence the brain in many different ways. Some stimulate attention, some support memory, and others affect the nervous system in ways that can calm the mind completely. And the next plant on this list is one of the most famous calming herbs ever recorded in herbal history. Number 6. Chamomile, the quiet calming herb. For thousands of years, chamomile has been known as one of the most gentle plants associated with calming the mind. Ancient Egyptians valued the plant so highly that it was sometimes associated with healing rituals and well-being. Later, across Europe and the Middle East, chamomile tea became a traditional evening drink used to help people unwind after long days of work. The small white flowers of the chamomile plant contain naturally occurring compounds that interact with receptors in the brain involved in relaxation. Researchers studying chamomile have noted that certain compounds in the plant appear to influence signals connected to the nervous system's calming responses. This may explain why chamomile became such a common herbal preparation for promoting rest and relaxation. Even today, many people turn to chamomile tea in the evening when they want the mind to slow down after a stressful day. But the next plant on this list has an even stronger reputation when it comes to supporting sleep. For centuries, people turned to its roots when the mind simply refused to rest. Number 7. Valerian root, the ancient sleep companion. Long before modern sleep aids existed, people in ancient Europe and parts of Asia used valerian root when they struggled to sleep. Historical writings suggest that the plant was known to herbalists as early as ancient Greek and Roman times. Valerian root has a distinctive earthy scent, and its underground root contains compounds that interact with neurotransmitters involved in the body's natural sleep processes. Because of this, the plant became widely used in traditional herbal preparations intended to help calm the nervous system before rest. In many historical herbal traditions, valerian was associated with helping the body transition into sleep during times of stress or mental agitation. While the plant is best known for its connection to sleep, the next plant on this list affects the brain in a very different way. Instead of working through ingestion, it influences the mind through something far more subtle: scent. Number 8. Lavender, the aromatic influence. Few plants are as instantly recognizable as lavender. With its purple flowers and distinctive fragrance, lavender has been used for centuries in gardens, homes, and herbal traditions. Ancient cultures noticed something interesting about the aroma of lavender. When the scent filled a room, people often reported feeling calmer and more relaxed. Modern research has examined the aromatic compounds within lavender and how they interact with the olfactory system, the part of the brain responsible for processing scent. Because smell is closely connected to emotional and memory centers in the brain, certain plant aromas can influence mood and relaxation. Lavender eventually became one of the most widely used plants in aromatherapy and calming herbal traditions. But the next plant on this list is almost the opposite. Instead of relaxing the mind, it can stimulate alertness and sharpen attention. Number 9. Peppermint, the alertness herb. Peppermint is one of the most familiar herbs in the world. People recognize it instantly from its cooling flavor and refreshing scent. But peppermint does more than simply taste fresh. The essential oils found within peppermint leaves contain compounds that interact with sensory pathways in the body and brain. When people inhale the scent of peppermint or consume peppermint tea, they often report feeling more alert and mentally refreshed. Researchers studying peppermint aroma have observed that it may influence attention and mental performance in certain situations. Because of this effect, peppermint has long been associated with energy, focus, and clarity. But the next plant on this list has been connected to memory and learning for centuries, and its fragrance became famous among scholars and students. Number 10. Rosemary, the memory herb. In ancient Greece, students sometimes wore small sprigs of rosemary while studying. The reason was simple. Rosemary had become associated with memory and mental clarity. Its strong aromatic oils were believed to help sharpen focus and support the mind during long periods of learning. Modern studies have examined compounds in rosemary that may influence aspects of cognitive performance and attention. One particular compound found in rosemary's essential oils has been studied for its interaction with brain chemistry involved in memory processes. Because of this long-standing connection, rosemary became symbolically linked with remembrance in many cultures. But the plants we've seen so far mostly influence focus, relaxation, or memory. The next group of plants begins to affect the brain in far more powerful and complex ways that shaped cultures, rituals, and even entire societies. And the next plant on this list became famous across civilizations for its deep calming effects on the human mind. Number 11. Kava, the island plant of calm. Across the islands of the Pacific Ocean, long before modern medicine reached these shores, communities gathered around a drink made from the root of a plant called kava. The preparation was simple but meaningful. The roots of the kava plant were carefully processed and mixed with water to create a drink that played an important role in ceremonies, negotiations, and social gatherings. What people noticed was the effect it seemed to have on the mind. Those who consumed kava often described a deep sense of relaxation and calm without the clouded thinking that comes from many intoxicating substances. Traditional cultures used it during moments when peace, clarity, and conversation were important. Modern research has examined compounds within kava known as kavalactones, which interact with parts of the nervous system associated with relaxation. For centuries, this plant quietly shaped the way entire communities gathered, resolved conflicts, and shared stories. But the next plant on this list works in a completely different way. Instead of calming the mind, it became known for helping people endure intense physical and mental stress. Number 12. Ashwagandha, the root of resilience. In ancient India, healers working within early herbal traditions often relied on a plant known as ashwagandha. The name itself carries meaning. In traditional language, it was associated with strength and vitality. The root of the plant was used in preparations intended to help the body adapt during periods of exhaustion, pressure, or mental strain. Travelers, laborers, and scholars sometimes turn to this plant when facing long journeys or demanding work. Modern scientists studying ashwagandha have focused on compounds called withanolides, which are believed to interact with the body's stress response systems. Rather than sharply stimulating the brain, the plant is associated with helping the body maintain balance when facing ongoing mental or physical challenges. For thousands of years, people viewed this plant as something that helped steady the mind when life became overwhelming. But the next plant on this list was known for helping people endure something even more difficult: extreme fatigue. Number 13. Rhodiola rosea, the mountain survivor. High in cold mountainous regions of Europe and Asia grows a small plant called Rhodiola rosea. In environments where winters are long and conditions are harsh, traditional cultures learned to rely on plants that help the body endure difficult climates. Rhodiola became known as one of these plants. Historical accounts suggest that people living in these regions consumed preparations made from the root during long journeys, physically demanding work, or harsh seasonal conditions. The plant contains compounds that researchers have studied for their potential influence on fatigue and mental endurance. Because of this, rhodiola eventually gained a reputation as a plant associated with resilience, not sudden bursts of stimulation, but the ability to keep going when the body and mind feel exhausted. However, the next plant on this list became known not for endurance or calm, but for its unusual relationship with human mood. Number 14. St. John's wort, the mood herb. For centuries across Europe, a bright yellow flowering plant known as St. John's wort appeared in herbal traditions connected to emotional well-being. Historical records show that herbal practitioners used the plant in preparations intended to support mood and emotional balance. The plant's flowers contain compounds that researchers have studied for their interaction with brain chemicals related to mood regulation. Because of this, St. John's wort eventually became one of the most widely discussed plants in relation to emotional health. Yet even throughout history, people understood that plants affecting the brain must be approached carefully. The same natural compounds that influence mood can also interact with the body in complex ways. Which brings us to the final plant in this section, one that reminds us how powerful plant chemistry can truly be. Number 15. Nutmeg, the spice with unexpected effects. Most people know nutmeg as a simple kitchen spice. It flavors desserts, warm drinks, and traditional recipes around the world. But few realize that the seed of the nutmeg tree contains powerful compounds that interact with the nervous system. In small culinary amounts, nutmeg contributes warmth and aroma to food. However, historical accounts show that in very large quantities, the compounds within nutmeg can influence the brain in unusual ways. Because of this, herbal traditions often treated the plant with caution. Nutmeg became a reminder that plants influencing the mind must be respected. The natural world contains chemistry far more complex than many people realize. And as we continue through this list, the final plants will reveal just how deeply human history has been shaped by plants that interact with the brain. Number 16. Tobacco, the plant that rewired the brain. Few plants in human history have influenced the brain as widely as tobacco. Long before it became a global commercial product, indigenous cultures across the Americas treated tobacco as a powerful plant with deep cultural meaning. It was often used in rituals, ceremonies, and moments of spiritual reflection. People noticed that the plant had a strong effect on the mind and body. The leaves of the tobacco plant contain nicotine, a compound that interacts with receptors in the brain linked to attention, mood, and reward pathways. This interaction can create a powerful sense of stimulation and focus. Because of its strong influence on the brain's chemistry, tobacco eventually became one of the most widely used plants affecting human behavior. But the next plant on this list is consumed by millions of people every single day, often without realizing the remarkable chemistry hidden within its leaves. Number 17. Yerba mate, the focus drink of South America. Across parts of South America, people gather around a shared drink made from the leaves of a plant called yerba mate. For generations, communities in countries such as Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil have consumed this drink during conversations, work, and daily routines. Yerba mate contains a combination of naturally occurring compounds, including caffeine and other plant chemicals associated with alertness and energy. But unlike many stimulants, people often describe the effect of yerba mate as balanced, a mixture of mental clarity and sustained energy. Because of this, the plant became an important part of cultural traditions tied to focus, conversation, and social connection. Yet the next plant on this list affects the brain in a far more profound and historically significant way. Number 18. Poppy plant, the plant that changed medicine. Among all the plants that interact with the human brain, few have had a greater influence on medicine than the poppy plant. For thousands of years, ancient civilizations noticed that substances derived from this plant could ease severe pain. Historical records from early medical traditions describe preparations made from poppy that were used to calm suffering and provide relief. The plant produces compounds that interact with the brain's pain control systems. Because of this property, substances derived from poppy eventually became the foundation for some of the most powerful pain-relieving medicines ever developed. Few plants demonstrate more clearly how natural compounds can shape entire fields of medicine. But the next plant on this list affects the brain in a very different way, through aroma alone. Number 19. Lemon balm, the gentle mind soother. In medieval gardens across Europe, herbalists often cultivated a plant known as lemon balm. The plant's fresh citrus-like scent made it popular in teas and herbal preparations. Historical writings suggest that lemon balm was commonly used when people wanted to calm the mind during periods of nervousness or restlessness. The plant contains aromatic compounds that researchers have studied for their interaction with the nervous system. Because of its gentle nature, lemon balm became known as one of the most soothing herbs used in traditional herbal practices. But the final plant on this list may be one of the most fascinating of all, because it reminds us that some of the plants influencing the brain are already part of everyday life. Number 20. Sage, the plant linked to wisdom. The word sage has long been associated with wisdom. Ancient cultures believed the plant supported clear thinking and mental sharpness. For centuries, people used sage leaves in food, herbal preparations, and traditional remedies. Researchers studying sage have found that compounds in the plant may interact with chemical systems involved in memory and attention. This connection between sage and cognitive function may explain why the plant became symbolically linked with wisdom across many cultures. But sage also reminds us of something deeper. The natural world has always contained plants capable of influencing the human mind. Long before laboratories existed, people carefully observed the effects of plants around them. They learned which ones energized the brain, which ones calmed the nervous system, and which ones helped people think more clearly. And many of those plants are still part of our world today. The surprising truth is that the relationship between plants and the human brain is not something new. For thousands of years, people have relied on plants to sharpen focus, calm the mind, lift mood, and endure stress. Some of these plants are famous. Others grow quietly in gardens, forests, or fields. Yet all of them remind us of something remarkable. The natural world contains an entire chemistry of compounds that interact with the human mind, and we are only beginning to fully understand how powerful that relationship can be. If you found this video interesting, let us know in the comments. Which plant surprised you the most? And if you enjoy exploring ancient plants, forgotten natural knowledge, and the science behind them, make sure you subscribe. There are still many more plants in the natural world with stories that most people have never heard. And some of them might be growing closer to you than you think.